Kelsey O'Donnell, and my favorite thing that I learned from sensation and perception is change and inattentional bias. I find these phenomena to be super fascinating because it explains how we can miss so many details and why multitasking does not work. So, what is change blindness? Here's the definition that we get from the textbook. Change blindness is difficulty in detecting differences between two visual stimuli that are presented one after another, often with a short blank stimulus interposed between them. Also occurs when part of a stimulus is changed very slowly. So in other words, change blindness is when we don't notice a difference in something happening in our line of sight, whether that be something happening around us, or a picture, a movie, show, etc. And this normally happens either very slowly or where there is a brief break in our visual scene. So I have some examples of change blindness that will hopefully give a better understanding of how it works. The first one is a before and after photo. So imagine you are watching a slideshow and the before picture has a lamp, but it's gone in the second picture and you don't notice that the lamp is gone. In the second example, imagine that you're watching a movie and in the first shot, the character has a blanket on their lap, but it cuts to another shot or another camera angle, and the person no longer has the blanket in their lap and you don't notice that. In the third example, imagine you're sitting at a table and you look away for a second, like you hear a noise or something, you look really fast, and you look back and you don't notice that your napkin actually blew away off of the table. So in my final example of change blindness, you have one of those color changing cups that changes with the temperature, and it slowly changes color as your drink cools down, but you don't notice that your drink is actually changing color. So in all of these examples, the stimulus changes either slowly or with a break in your visual scene, and you fail to notice the change. So what is inattentional blindness? It's actually similar to change blindness in that there is a stimulus there that you don't actually notice or perceive, but it occurs in a different way. So here is the definition that we get from the textbook. It is a situation in which a stimulus that is not attended is not perceived, even though the person is looking directly at it. So in other words, inattentional bias is when you miss something that happens right in front of you because you're too focused on something different, like maybe another task or you're looking at something else. So I have some examples of inattentional blindness now to demonstrate how it's different from change blindness. So in example 1, you're so focused on studying for your final that you don't notice that your friend is like aggressively waving at you from across the room. In example 2, imagine you are texting your friend, you're stopped at a red light, you're texting your friend, and you don't notice that the light actually turned green, and like people have to honk at you and stuff. In example 3, you miss an important detail in the movie you're watching because you were also working on your homework at the same time. And finally, in example 4, imagine you're scrolling on TikTok and a notification pops up on your screen, but you don't even notice that it pops up because you're so laser focused on that TikTok. So in all of these examples, something is missed because you were too distracted by another task or stimulus. So there are 3 main things that stood out to me when I was learning about change and inattentional bias. First, it shows how much our attention to tasks shapes our perception. If we aren't focused on something enough or have too many other things to look at or too many other things going on, we're going to miss some details, and that's shown by these phenomena. And this ties into my next point, that it's so easy to miss things that are right in front of us. I previously would have thought before learning about this that I would be able to notice differences in things like before and after pictures and like different shots in movies, but that's just not the case. And my last point is that multitasking actually doesn't really work, and it can actually be dangerous in certain situations, especially texting and driving, which is why it is so important to remain focused when you're doing dangerous tasks like that, because if you're looking at your phone, you're going to miss what's going on the road or things going on around you. And here is my works cited, the textbook. Okay, thank you.